I want to take a couple minutes here and just talk about working with JHipster in development. So we're going to have an exercise at the end of this section. And one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in and change some HTML. And the first thing that people do is they go ahead and launch their Spring Boot application here. So here we are running at localhost 8080. And we come in here and we see this My Tasks. And you go, all right, well, I'll just go into the web app, into home, find the home component, and change this. So it changes to something else like hello Dan Vega. I'll save. I'll come back to my browser and nothing's changed. And even if I come in here and go ahead and hit refresh, nothing will have changed. And that's because we're working on the Angular side now. This is the Spring Boot app that's basically up and running. If we were to make a change to, say, like a controller or a service layer, and we had DevTools installed, then that would do a hot reload for us, and those changes would take effect, but not on the Vue side, which is really on the Angular side. But the good news is there's something that we can do to work with this in development. So here I'm going to come over to a terminal, and I'm just going to run the command yarn start. And as this is running, I'm going to go ahead and talk through this. So what this is going to do for you is it's going to allow you to, as soon as you modify an HTML, CSS, or TypeScript file in your browser, it's going to refresh automatically and you'll see those changes. When you test your application on several different browsers or devices, all of your clicks, scrolls, inputs should automatically be synchronized on all of your screens. So what's going to happen when this finishes is basically it's going to launch a Webpack task that will automatically compile your TypeScript code into JavaScript. It's going to load a hot module reload server, which is going to be running on port 9060 and proxies over to our 127.0.0.1, which is our local host /API, so it can access the backend. So also it gives us a browser sync tasks in port 9000, which basically proxies back to 9060. Again, don't need to worry about all the specifics here, but it gives us all of that hot browser sync capabilities and the hot reloading on the Angular side. And it also gives us a browser sync UI, which is available at localhost 3001. So if we go back to IntelliJ, we'll actually see that here in our terminal. So we see it's compiled successfully. Here's our proxy at 9060, but how we're going to access it is by hitting localhost 9000, or we can hit the UI from localhost 3001. So now, if we go ahead and change this, so let's go back and just say my tasks. And now as soon as I hit save, you'll see that it starts to go through this. And if I go ahead and pull up my browser, this is going to refresh. So now it says my tasks. So that gives us that capabilities right out of the box. So really, if you're working on the Angular side, that's how you're going to start your server or run your Webpack command start. And basically, that's how you're going to work through development. And then as I said before, we can also go to localhost 3001 and we'll get our browser sync UI, which again we can talk through later. If you've ever used browser sync, then you've probably seen this, but we'll talk through this at a different time. But that's the capabilities that yarn start command will give us. So I just thought I'd mention that because we are going to need to obviously work in development, and when we start working on our exercise at the end of this section, you'll need to know that as well. So I think that's it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson.